So for us today, we have a wonderful feast day. In fact, it's almost kind of a double count Mass where you have it being Sunday, but also All Saints Day. And I guess it's very fitting during this time that we get a double count instead of having to go to Mass twice with all the coronavirus stuff going on in that. But for us, we really do have a wonderful, wonderful feast day, and very timely one, because the saints help us to recognize what is most important in life. One of the things I've noticed, especially on the news and our culture, is we don't seem to have a clear sense of society anymore what the most important issues are. It seems like if someone is upset enough, it just rises whatever issue to the most important thing. And then when it comes to things like voting and making decisions, we feel kind of lost and adrift because there's so many factors that we feel we have to take into account. But here's where the saints really help us. Because when we look at what they lived for, what they died for, we look at their last words. They show us very clearly those most important issues. And they show us what is essential and what would be nice. They show us what things just cannot be tolerated anymore. The voice of the martyrs proclaims very eloquently the last 2,000 years the great dignity and love which God created us with, proclaims the sanctity of the family and of the church and of religious freedom, proclaims the need for all of us to really respect one another, and for us to have a deep concern for those around us, as Christ has such a deep concern for each of us. But more than that, my brothers and sisters, the saints bear witness that the church is much greater than we can possibly imagine. Because it's during these days as well that a lot of people see the church as just something that's nice to do, something to make you feel good, something that's optional. But it's the saints who really bear witness from Christ to now that there's much more going on here. That the greatest issue is not things of this world, but getting to the next. And for us to stay true to God, to stay true to ourselves in this life, is what truly opens up paradise to each one of us. You know, there are many people these days who say that the church, our practice of faith, should be anything we want it to be. And sure, there's many churches all around doing that. But isn't it interesting that most of the Protestant churches do not revere the saints? In fact, that got lost during the Reformation and during many of their departures. And why? Because when you look at the lives of the saints, you realize that all of them are Catholic, that the church has been one throughout all the centuries, and that the saints really witness to all of us that we are called to one heavenly home with God our Father. This then becomes one of the greatest tasks for us, is finding that unity, finding that ability to really live as a family of God. And I think for us, as we see so much division in our country, so much rhetoric, so many words that we're shocked that they're even uttered, I think we need to let our faith really heal those wounds and to bring us together in a deeper way. You know, it's kind of fun for me standing outside in the cold saying hi to everybody as we come in, but you look at this group and how eclectic we are in so many ways. And you really wonder, if it wasn't for the church, would we be friends? Would we be sitting next to each other? Would we see each other every week if it wasn't for our common faith? But yet this is the great desire of Christ, that it's our faith that binds us together in a deeper way, that transcends even ideologies, that transcends where we were born, where we came from, that transcends language, to help us to find that deeper unity. So what is a saint? A saint is someone who is solemnly declared by the church to be in heaven. In fact, there's quite a process that the church goes through to declare a saint. You may recall that we have a priest in our diocese, Father Joe Walieski, who actually did his associate pastorship over in Thorpe. But he is in the process of canonization. He spent his life working in Peru and Bolivia, founding the missions, orphanages, hospitals. An amazing, amazing guy. I was blessed to be his secretary for a summer while I was a seminarian and to get to know him a little bit, as many of you know. But right now, he is a venerable. And what that means is the diocese, the bishop, has said this man seems to be very holy. He has quite the following in the diocese. We would like to open up the cause for canonization. To get from venerable to blessed, Father Joe Walieski needs to pass the written exam. Basically, they study his whole life, all of his writings, make sure he didn't do anything heretical, anything crazy. Everything checks out as holy. They interview all kinds of people who knew him. And then there needs to be a miracle. And the miracle can't be, oh, I had cancer and the chemotherapy really worked well. No, it needs to be a miracle beyond reproach where the doctors are starting to go to Mass themselves. It needs to be a miracle that you never saw coming. And once you have that study of life and the miracle, there will be a final review and you move to a blessed. And as a blessed, you actually get a day on the liturgical calendar where there's actually a feast day for you. But then to get from blessed to saint, you have another review of life and you need to have another miracle. It's kind of ironic, my own home parish, St. Bronze in Plover, is actually named St. Bronislava for someone who's not a saint. It's Blessed Bronislava. I guess it's all really pious Polish people. But she's a blessed because her documents, all the written testimonies of her, were burned by the barbarians. And so there's no documentation they can use to get her from a blessed to a saint. Even though she's got plenty of miracles behind her, there's no way to pass the written exam, so she'll probably stay a blessed. And even in Mexico, Juan Diego, he was known about for 460 years, but they need to do a lot of study all over the world to find the written documents, if you will, about Juan Diego to attest. And once that study was done, it was then he was able to become a saint. But we are assured that the saints are in heaven. In fact, you hear about the Pope making infallible statements. And when the Pope makes certain statements about the faith, they are infallible. They are gospel truth. And every time a saint is declared a saint, that is seen as infallible. It's gospel truth. This person is in heaven without a doubt. This is a great hope for all of us. Because in this life, it's very easy for us to compare ourselves to one another and to come up lacking. But when we compare ourselves to the saints, we should be enthusiastic. We should be inspired. We should be animated to imitate their virtue, to realize that holiness is possible. That we can do the things that they did and come to know the peace and the joy and the love that they had. That our lives could have meaning like theirs. And the saints, too, really help us to put a human face on the gospel, on the practice of faith, to show us what it looks like to be Catholic, what it looks like to really love in our world. A beautiful, hard thing in our society is that history has a way of repeating itself. There are so many saints who bear witness to what we are going through today in our country. So many saints who have been through it before. And this is why, my brothers and sisters, it's so important that each and every day we should have contact with the saints. One of the beautiful opportunities we have is to always be reading a book of saints. More specifically, one of their autobiographies, or maybe a good biography on them. But what a beautiful, beautiful little homework piece for us as Catholics is to always be reading the life of a saint, just a little page turner, to really let their words, their experiences wash over us. And I guarantee you, when you live even a whole year with a saint, it's amazing how your life kind of intertwines with theirs and how they become a great source of inspiration as a big brother or a big sister. So I encourage each of us as we're kind of going through the process of starting to think about New Year's crazy resolutions, maybe our New Year's resolution would be to walk this next year with a saint. And to look at saints, to look at what's available, to look at what kind of jumps out at us, and to read the life of a saint this next year, and to really walk with one of our big brothers and sisters in heaven. The last thing I want to mention is in the Catholic Church, we really see our faith and the practice of our faith founded on Christ and the saints. And one thing we've lost these last 50, 60 years in the church is a beautiful symbol. And that comes to the chalices that priests use. As you know, my chalice is 140 years old. And if you look at my chalice close up, you'll see around it, there's actually kind of a petal of flowers with different silver medallions of different saints. All chalices used to be made like this up until about 60 years ago, where the meaning is the practice of our faith, the reason why I can be a priest and celebrate Mass for you today is because of the legacy of the saints, because of their victories. And they become the foundation of our ability to give thanks to God and to worship God in the Eucharist. So my chalice, I have one of them is Christ on the cross with Mama Mary, St. John and Mary Magdalene at the foot of the cross. On the opposite side is Mama Mary at the Annunciation, saying yes to be the Mother of God. And then I have the four evangelists going around. That's through the saintly example of the four gospel writers of Mama Mary, of Christ on the cross, that we are able to celebrate this Mass. But there are many chalices who have many other saints as well going around. But I think for us, the foundation of our lives, the foundation of our courage to live a gospel love should be rooted in the saints. I know for our confirmation students, one of the decisions they're making right now is who is their confirmation saint going to be? And I always challenge them to pick someone who really has meaning to you, someone who inspires you with things that aren't quite there yet in your lives. And I think for us, our own confirmation saints, that's a person who has a special, special connection with us. Maybe to start looking at them a little bit more, the saint that we chose, the saint we were inspired to choose. Let's really think about this next year of really being one of saintliness, of living with the saints, walking with the saints, that we may truly come to realize the great holiness, the great beauty our lives are called to have, and the way we're called to be part of those saints marching into heaven, God willing.